I'm a widow consumed by longing. While burning incense to pray for marriage, a ruffian broke into my chamber. I knocked him out with a vase. Upon closer look, well now, what a handsome fellow. I tied him up and hid him in my small courtyard, tormenting him every day. Later, he escaped. When we met again, I knelt on the ground, trembling as I said, This humble woman pays her respects to your highness the crown prince. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins. I bring misfortune to husbands. I had already outlived 2 husbands. My first husband was a military officer who died in battle. We had a son together. My second husband was a scholar who later achieved 3rd place in the imperial examinations, but drowned accidentally while managing flood control. We also have a son. I still live in the general's mansion. My second husband was a penniless man, and when we married, we still lived in my first husband's estate. My first in-laws were open-minded. They didn't blame me for bringing misfortune upon their only son's death, but instead thanked me for giving birth to his posthumous child. Later, they treated me as their own daughter. My scholar husband, who ranked 3rd in the imperial examinations, was even introduced to me by my father-in-law. In our dynasty, it's quite common for widows to remarry. Even our ancestors had issued decrees prohibiting the enforcement of widow chastity, because my scholar husband was a penniless man, and I couldn't bear to part with my eldest son Golden Egg. Our children and I lived in the general's mansion. My in-laws also wished for us to stay. This way, the household would be livelier with more people. Old age loves liveliness. I had good relationships with both of my husbands. We were always deeply attached to each other, sharing weal and woe. They were both very considerate, and I grew from a naive young girl into a woman of unique charm. Losing a general husband was already a heavy blow to me. Then my scholar husband passed away too. This forced me to abandon any thoughts of remarrying. Even if I dared to marry again, no one would dare to take me. Moreover, I have 2 sons, Golden Egg and Wooden Egg. Wooden Egg was born to me and my scholar husband. Now Golden Egg is 3 years old, and Wooden Egg is 1 year old. As for me, though blessed with beauty, I am left alone in an empty room, utterly desolate. Had I never known the pleasures between a man and a woman, it might have been bearable. Yet both my former husbands opened the gates to new worlds for me. My body was awakened, and my soul came to savor the delights of that intimacy. Now, suddenly, I'm left with abstinence. I'm really, truly, unbearably thirsty for love. So I decided to pray to the gods, hoping to meet a man who could bring me happiness again. My body is like a flower without the nourishment of passion. I feel half withered already. The other half lives for my children. As a mother's duty demands, I went to Fahua Temple to burn incense and will stay for 3 days. The 2 children get along well and are being taken care of by their grandparents. I knelt all morning with just 2 wishes, one for my family's good health, the second is to grant me a happy marriage. I slept all afternoon. At night, the Buddha manifested his divine presence. After finishing my bedtime routine, I admired my reflection in the mirror for a while before turning off the lights and going to sleep. As I slept, even in this sacred Buddhist sanctuary, I found myself burning with desire. The body has its own sensations, beyond my control. Recalling the intimate moments and passionate unions with my 2 husbands in bed only made sleep more elusive. All I could do was clutch the quilt tighter for some relief. Alas! Who understands the loneliness of a young woman in her springtime? It was the middle of the night. I heard someone prying open my window. I was terrified. I didn't dare scream. What if the intruder killed me before anyone could come to help? I quietly got up and picked up a vase from the wooden shelf. I stealthily hid behind the curtain. When the person approached, I swung the vase down and knocked them out cold. Not daring to be careless, I immediately used my belt to tie their hands and feet together. I then went to light the candle, and then I froze. This intruder, though dressed in black night clothes, had an exceptionally handsome face beneath his mask. I took a moment to assess his physique, tall and slender, with long limbs. His fingers were long and pale. I gave his stomach a pat. He had abs. What a broad-shouldered, narrow-waisted handsome man. I glanced at his lower half again. Couldn't see anything. I think I must be out of my mind. I reached out and gave it a feel. It's incredibly magnificent. I swallowed hard. I can feel myself getting a bit tingly and wet down there. Just then, A maid's voice called from outside, "Madam, what's wrong? Are you all right?" The villain also seemed to be waking up. I quickly covered the thug's mouth and stuffed a piece of cloth into it. I said, "I'm fine, go back to sleep." The maid left. The thug and I locked eyes. He had a pair of handsome, narrow phoenix eyes. If I hadn't been so lust-addled, I should have noticed the noble air about this young master. But I was lust-addled. All I could do was admire his striking good looks. My first two husbands, one was exceptionally heroic, with a body full of sinewy muscles, strong and powerful. He could often carry me around the house with just one arm. Sometimes, for the thrill of it, we would venture into secluded wilderness. The other was a frail scholar, gentle as jade. Though he couldn't lift me with one arm for such activities, he was incredibly tender and patient. He also enjoyed studying the fire avoidance illustrations with me, which was quite amusing. Each has their own merits, but this villain, I see, is a combination of both, and he's got my undergarment stuffed in his mouth. I just grabbed it without thinking at the time. I didn't even have time to put on clothes. I'm still wearing my red bellaband. Thinking of this, I pretended to be shy and hugged myself, deliberately squeezing my cleavage into view. When I intentionally seduced my two former husbands before, they got as excited as wolves spotting fresh meat. I pitifully spoke up, "Who are you? Why are you stealing my things?" He signaled with his eyes for me to remove the thing from his mouth. Just now I wanted to call for help, now I'm afraid he'll call for help. So I didn't manage to do it. Instead, I went and got a rope. I don't know why there was a rope in the meditation room either. I used the rope to tie him up even more securely. My general husband taught me this. It was one of our little bedroom games back then. It could restrain someone while making it impossible for them to break free. Under his incredulous and bewildered gaze, I lifted his upper body and dragged him onto the bed. During this time, I didn't hide my chest from him. He was already blushing furiously. I hurried to lock the doors and windows again. Then I let down the bed curtains. I touched his face and said earnestly, "I don't have much here, just myself." I bit my lip shyly. "If you want to steal, you can only steal me." I gently loosened half of my undergarment, then began removing his clothes. He struggled, but couldn't break free. I explained to him, "Look, you little thief, how could you steal from a weak woman like me? Shouldn't you give me some compensation?" I said sorrowfully, "I've lost two husbands. And it's been so long since anyone brought me joy." He whimpered twice, gesturing for me to let him go. I let go of it, then I undressed him. Afterwards, he fell apart in my hands, his face flushed crimson, his eyes seemed intent on killing me. Then they grew distant again. I was straddling him, like riding a magnificent, wild, and noble horse, galloping across the grasslands. We were both drenched in sweat. My hair clung to my skin. It had been so long since I'd felt this thoroughly spent. He was no different, even if we looked utterly disheveled, but this way, he becomes even more beautiful. It makes me want to torment him again. This night, when I'm tired, I rest in his embrace. What a broad and magnificent chest. I regained some strength and stood up once more. He truly is a magnificent man. We made love together 7 times. I affectionately call him Shichiro. In the end, we all fell sound asleep. I will stay at Hokiji Temple for 3 days. I plan to hide him in the meditation room. Early the next morning, I was startled awake by a knock at the door. The maid called from outside, "Madam, there are bandits in the temple. The abbot and his disciples are searching everywhere, and they need to check your meditation room too." I uttered an "oh" to acknowledge the message. Turning my head, I locked eyes with Shichijiro. I asked, "Are they looking for you?" I had already tormented him into a state of complete indifference. When he ignored me, I started drawing circles on his firm, muscular chest. "Should I hand you over then?" His breathing hitched. I coquettishly said, "How could I bear to? I was just teasing you." I cleaned up the room, then hid him under my quilt again. Weakly, I told the maid, "I'm ill. You may invite the master in to search." The monks didn't dare to come in, so they left. The title of general's wife still carries some weight. For the next 2 days, I had my vegetarian meals in the meditation room. Shichiro was utterly humiliated and furious. But he didn't dare to shout out loud either. I didn't stuff my undergarments in his mouth anymore, just tied him up. Sometimes I still did. We lived our days together without a shred of shame. I believe this is the Buddha's divine manifestation. It must have known I've been abstinent for too long. So it sent me a handsome man, and this handsome man is so capable, so competent. I'm truly satisfied. Committing such lewd acts in the pure sanctuary of Buddhism brings an extraordinary thrill, making it exceptionally exciting. The matter of Shichiro was eventually discovered by my personal maid, Zhuang Zhuang. Zhuang Zhuang advised me to exercise restraint and not ruin my reputation. Of course I knew. I certainly don't want to be known as a wanton woman. My son still needs to find a wife someday. To the outside world, I maintain the image of a tragic widow, though husbandless. I'm virtuous, though beautiful. I know my place. Zhuang Zhuang and I had a thorough discussion. On the night before we left, Zhuang Zhuang carried Shichiro away on her back. Zhuang Zhuang was a martial skilled maid personally selected for me by the general's husband. She was incredibly strong and highly skilled in martial arts. Her only flaw was sleeping too soundly, otherwise I wouldn't have succeeded that night. We hid Shichiro in one of my small courtyards. The courtyard wasn't far from the general's residence, just 2 incense sticks worth of time by carriage. I specially had an iron chain forged for Shichiro. I fed him a muscle-relaxing powder that temporarily nullified his martial arts skills and physical strength. I wrapped the chains with cotton cloth against my body, allowing him to move freely around the house. He truly couldn't take it anymore. When I first went over, he stood coldly in the courtyard. The icy rain beat down on him. He looked at me coldly, then he said coldly, "I am the crown prince of this dynasty, release me, and I will let bygones be bygones." I froze, then I dismissed the servants. Taking his hand, I said, "Such an important matter, why didn't you say so earlier?" Seeing that I believed him, he let out a sigh of relief and followed me into the house, saying, "This matter is highly confidential. We can't risk alerting the enemy, which is why I couldn't tell you." I nodded, and as the pleasant clinking of his ankle chain echoed, I closed the door behind us. I chuckled mischievously. "You, a prince? If you're the prince, then I must be the princess. Come on, my dear husband, it's time to pay the royal tribute." With that, I pounced on him, knocking him onto the bed, and skillfully straddled him. Reaching to undo his clothes, he angrily retorted, "You don't believe me, or do you dare to blaspheme even the crown prince?" I scoffed. "The crown prince would stoop to theft. Could you at least come up with a decent lie before trying to fool me?" I began to chuckle darkly again. "Go on, scream. Scream all you want, no one's coming to save you." After eating and drinking my fill, and indulging in daytime debauchery to my heart's content, I took a rest before getting up to dress. Golden Egg started school this year, and as a doting mother, I go to pick him up every day. I may enjoy my leisure, but Golden Egg and Wooden Egg are what matter most to me. Shichiro had already lost all interest in life. Staring at the ceiling, he said, "You'll regret this." I kissed him gently and said softly, "All right, in matters like this, you're not at a disadvantage. Go ask around who would think you've been wronged. Wait for me obediently, and I'll come see you." He turned his gaze to me. "You're keeping me on the side. Does your husband know?" I usually wore my hair in a married woman's bun. I sighed. "My husband is gone. Otherwise, this wouldn't have fallen to your advantage." And so it went for more than 10 days. I could feel my complexion improving. Being well nourished does make a difference, and the thrill of keeping a mistress is simply exhilarating, an unparalleled thrill. I feel like my life is absolutely delightful. I don't go every day, usually just once every 2 or 3 days. His taste was truly exquisite, unforgettable to me. That day, I was just about to visit Shichiro to play with him for a couple of hours, then pick up Golden Egg, and after that, return to spend time with Wooden Egg. But as soon as I reached the door, a familiar yet unfamiliar figure appeared at the entrance. It was actually my general husband. Everyone was shocked. My general husband wasn't dead after all. He held me tightly in his arms, saying he had missed me every single moment these 3 years. It was by thinking of me that he managed to hold on. My eyes welled up with tears too. How should I tell him that I've remarried? How should I tell him that I'm keeping another man on the side? He was shocked when he saw the Wooden Egg. It was still his mother, who pulled him aside and briefly explained the situation. Fortunately, the general, my husband, held my hand and said, "Luckily, the Tanhua scholar is dead. We'll live as we did before." I breathed a sigh of relief. He then picked up the Golden Egg, kissed it several times, and laughed heartily, saying, "Son, your father is back." The Golden Egg looked very much like her general husband. The wooden egg looked very much like her scholar husband. The golden egg was delighted. She ran around cheering. He kept running while shouting, "Dad, Dad, Dad." He had also called the imperial scholar husband Dad before. Muden looked very confused beside them. The general husband picked up Muden and said, "From now on, you're also my son. Good boy, call me Dad." The wooden egg called out dazedly, "Father." The general husband kissed him a few times as usual. The general husband was wounded in battle and captured by barbarians. The barbarians demanded his surrender. He refused. He was locked up. Later, he dug a tunnel and escaped. His bravery remained undiminished from his prime. Before falling asleep contentedly in his arms, I swore to myself that I'd take the matter of Shishiru to my grave. I'll set him free tomorrow. He's a grown man. He definitely won't go around advertising that a woman forced herself on him. Besides, if I don't admit it, who can prove it was me? Look what life has turned an honest man like me into. The next day, while my general husband was at court to see the emperor, I tried to go out, but there at the gate, I saw a figure both familiar and strange. It was my scholar husband. He has also come back to life. My husband, the Tanhua, third-place scholar, held me tightly. Shedding tears of emotion, I cried too, both happy and afraid. I always feel like there's more yet to happen. In the hall, the Tanhua-ranked scholar's husband recounts his ordeal. He was swept away by the river. His leg was broken. His arm was broken. Saved by a farmer, he remained unconscious for a long time. For the first month, he couldn't even speak. After half a year of recovery, he finally fully regained his health. With no money or tokens on him, he had to walk back to the capital, which took another 2 months. Gazing at me tenderly, he said I was the thought that brought him back. I tried to cast aside the turmoil in my heart and respond to his affection. My in-laws concealed their indescribable expressions and then urged him to go rest. The golden egg and the wooden egg were the happiest. The golden egg cheered, "Oh, I have 2 daddies now." The wooden egg chimed in, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy." The scholar husband was puzzled. 2 daddies, at this moment. A voice came from outside, "Wife, son, I'm back. New dad is back. New dad is back. Old dad is back too. Old dad is back too." The 2 men stared at each other in the hall. No one spoke. The mother-in-law said awkwardly, "Son, didn't I tell you before that your wife remarried? This is the imperial examination's 3rd-ranked scholar." Then he said to the scholar husband, "Nephew, this is my son, who has also returned from the dead." The father-in-law laughed awkwardly. "Ha ha 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 ha. What a double blessing. Both our children have returned from the dead." At this moment, Zhuang rushed in and whispered in my ear. "The people from the side courtyard said that young master ran away yesterday." I was shocked. He actually ran away. Well, if he's gone, then he's gone. Just don't let me run into him again. Keep this matter to yourself. No one must know. Just then, the gatekeeper announced, "His Highness the Crown Prince has arrived." Everyone abandoned their reminiscing and hurried to greet the Crown Prince. When we reached the front gate and saw the handsome man clad in python-patterned robes standing with imposing dignity in the general's estate, I felt as if someone had seized me by the throat. "I'm having some difficulty breathing." My father-in-law, the general husband, and the top scholar husband quickly stepped forward and knelt in obeisance. "We pay our respects to your Highness the Crown Prince. Long live your Highness." The Crown Prince remained silent, his gaze fixed intently on me. Under his imperious stare, amidst the crowd of kneeling figures, I slowly lowered myself to my knees. Her legs trembled as she stammered, "Here's humble woman P pays respects to why your Highness the Crown Prince." A cold laugh came from above. "Now you believe I am the Crown Prince?" The eunuch immediately introduced, "Your Highness, this is your servant's daughter-in-law." Her general husband spoke up, "Your Highness, has my wife offended you in any way? She is but a timid inner-chamber woman, as fearful as a mouse. I beg your Highness not to take offense at her behavior." The Crown Prince said coldly, "When I last saw Madam, she claimed to be a widow. Now she has 2 husbands." My mother-in-law quickly interjected, "Your Highness may not know, but my son returned from the dead the day before yesterday, and my nephew came back to life yesterday. We only just found out ourselves. What's the matter? Madam Han, have you lost your tongue? Must others speak for you?" I stammered, "Why, your Highness, this humble woman knows her guilt." I beg for your highness's forgiveness. Oh, not mute, just stuttering. He then addressed the crowd, saying, all of you, rise, in the main hall. The crown prince sat on the elevated seat, his gaze icy. I shrank timidly behind my mother-in-law. My 2 eggs followed closely by my side. The crown prince's gaze swept over me, then over my 2 husbands, and finally lingered on my 2 eggs. I wonder how your esteemed household will adjudicate this case. Surely one mistress cannot have 2 husbands. My father-in-law wiped his sweat, offered an awkward smile, opened his mouth, yet no words came forth. The general husband stepped forward. In terms of who came first, Yang Yang is my lawfully wedded wife. Now that I've returned, she naturally should reconcile with me. As for the 2 children, no matter whose they are, I will raise them. After speaking, he glanced at the scholar husband and generously added, during my absence, it was the scholar who took care of my parents and brought them joy. Although he stole my wife, I won't hold it against you. If you're willing to stay in the manor, I'm willing to support you. After all, you were once my wife too. The general husband has strong possessive tendencies. I'm genuinely afraid he might even want to keep the crown prince in the manor. The scholar husband snorted coldly. Whether you're dead or resurrected, the marriage contract between you and Yang Yang was automatically annulled the day she married me. Now she is my lawfully wedded wife. Having said that, he added, Yang Yang stayed in the general's manor not to remain chaste for you, but for the golden eggs. I know losing your wife must be hard for you. We're willing to support you in your old age and arrange your funeral to make up for it. The general snorted. We're about the same age, aren't we? The crown prince then spoke up. I think the scholar makes a valid point. Everyone looked at him. The third-ranked scholar was delighted. The general grew furious. The in-laws wore expressions of distress. He continued, since Madame Han has begun a relationship with another man, her previous marriage naturally comes to an end. He looked at me and asked, don't you agree? The general immediately grasped my hand and said, Yang Yang, have you forgotten our solemn vows of love? The Tanhua scholar rushed forward anxiously, seizing my other hand. Yang Yang, don't forget our bond stronger than gold. I've only been gone for less than a year. I watched them, torn between 2 choices. The crown prince's gaze fell upon my 2 hands being held, his eyes growing even colder. According to the laws of this dynasty, those who offend their superiors shall be punished by dismemberment by 5 horses. His slender fingers twirled the ring on his hand. I trust the lady is an intelligent person. At this moment, I wished more than anything that time could flow backward. Why is Fahua Temple so efficacious? It gave me 3 men at once. That's way too many. The main problem is they're all fighting over me. This puts me in a difficult position. There's another one here to rush me to my doom. I must stabilize the situation first. In that case, I have no choice but to pretend to faint. The general pulled me into his powerful embrace and strode forward with me. Finally, I returned to the small courtyard where we had once lived together. What on earth is this all about? I thought the general had returned, so naturally we resumed our life together. And what should happen between husband and wife, happened. Thinking about last night, blushing. Never expected Tanhua would return too. I'm a traditional and conservative woman. It's impossible to have 2 husbands at the same time. But if they're willing, could I have them take turns night by night? After all, I'm really quite desperate. Would such good fortune ever come my way? The house was empty. The doctor said I'd suffered too much shock and needed quiet. I really did need some quiet. I still had 2 sons. If I had to choose one person, one of my sons might have to be separated from me. Thinking of the general's words, he truly is both magnanimous and possessive. As expected of a military commander, his analysis of problems is thorough. I thought lazily, why not just be with the general? That way, Tanhua could still live here with Muden. Moreover, we're eating and living at the general's residence, and Tanhua is too poor, might as well just stay put. Lost in my thoughts, a cold voice suddenly spoke from behind. What's this? Starting to pick and choose now, startled. I quickly turned around. I saw the crown prince staring at me. He had stared at me like this before, and I had scoffed at it, thinking he was quite good at pretending. At the time, I thought he must be some noble young master, but the capital is full of nobility, my family isn't lacking either, so I didn't take it seriously. Now, why do I feel such intense pressure? My first instinct wasn't to kneel in respect, it was to turn and run. Oh God, after all the humiliation I put him through before. He must want me dead. As a result, I hadn't even run 3 steps before he caught me from behind, wrapping his arms around my waist. I felt as though I'd been coiled by a venomous snake. His breath washed over my ear, warm and intimate. "Madam, what are you running from?" Then he took hold of me. I'm completely sober now, the lustful worm is gone. I still remember this is the general's bedroom. No matter how desperate I am, I don't want to betray him like this. I immediately struggled. "Let go of me, let go." He intensified his grip. "Doesn't my lady enjoy this very much?" My body was beyond my control. He sneered. "My lady's body is more honest than her mouth." I gasped. "No, no, please. My queen once begged me the same way. How did you answer me then?" Back then, I had laughed and said, "Soon you'll be in ecstasy." Now I return those very words to my queen. He regained his martial skills and strength. I was no match for him at all, in your minister's own house. Stealing his wife, do you still have any shame? Any shame at all? That makes it even more thrilling. This lord can see the lady is quite excited too. I would never admit it. Finally, our roles were reversed. Before, it was me who wore him out. After it was over, he lay on the bed listlessly, as if he'd been ravaged 100 times over. I got dressed and left. Now it was time for him to get dressed and leave. I felt as if I'd been violated 100 times over, before leaving. He turned his back to me and sneered viciously. "Not bad at all. I'll come back for more when I miss the taste of my lady." Tears of regret streamed down my face. "Calling you a sex-crazed pervert serves you right. I said I wasn't feeling well tonight, so I'd rather not go out." I heard the general and the top scholar arguing outside. Neither would let the other enter. The general was about to strike, but the eunuch stopped him. The eunuch said, "We're all family here, let's not spoil the harmony." The general retorted, "I treated him as family, but he tried to steal what's mine. Tanhua, Yang Yang is mine. Let's see if she chooses you or me. Ask her when she's better. Don't come crying to me then." They didn't cry, but I started crying first. Running away solves nothing, it only invites more problems. The doctor took my pulse and said I'm pregnant. Everyone exchanged bewildered glances. Me, there were only the 3 of us left in the room. The general roared in anger, "Who bullied you? Tell me, and I'll kill him." The top scholar was even more furious. "Yang Yang, don't be afraid. Tell me who it was. I'll definitely avenge you." I whispered guiltily, "No one bullied me. I'm sorry." "Is he the crown prince? I knew something was off about him when he came yesterday," said Tanhua. The general also said, "I sensed there was more to his words at the time." I explained, "Before, he was poisoned. I couldn't bear to see him explode and die. I was also affected by that bewitching smoke at the time." "Yang Yang, you don't need to explain. How could a woman like you be at fault? If there's any fault to be found, it's with those unscrupulous men." The Tanhua, 3rd place scholar, said indignantly. The general also angrily exclaimed, "To think there's still a homewrecker among us. The times have truly changed. People's hearts are no longer what they used to be." "Yang Yang," the Tanhua took my hand, "the child you bear will be mine. I will treat them no differently. As for the crown prince, I'll find a reason to impeach him tomorrow. Stay out of this." The general pushed the scholar aside. "The child my wife carries is naturally mine." I quickly interjected, "Don't go looking for trouble with him. I fear his high position and power. He might retaliate against us." 44. Suddenly, both the general and the scholar were staring at my wrist. I hurriedly hid it. That damn gloomy crown prince tied me up to get his revenge. Red marks circle my wrists. I was too frantic to hide them properly earlier. Now they've been spotted. "Yang Yang, who did this to you?" Upon seeing this, Tanhua cast an accusatory glance at the general. The general immediately responded, "How could I bear to leave such severe marks on her?" The two suddenly turned and strode out the door. I had no time to say anything. The general also took his great saber with him. Tanhua picked up a sword to bring along as well. I sat in the room with a heavy heart. Golden Egg and Wooden Egg kept me company. In their innocence, Wooden Egg asked, "Mother, is it true that Scholar Father said he would take us to live elsewhere?" Golden Egg replied, "Of course it's not true. General Father said we're staying in the general's residence." Wooden Egg let out a sound of acknowledgement, took a bite of cake, and said, "Two dads, hehe." Golden Egg, "That's great. No one can say I don't have a dad anymore." I have too. Looking at them, I decided I couldn't go on like this. Or everyone would be on edge. It's not fair to them either. In the end, it was fate playing tricks on us. I mustered up the courage to confront them and discuss what we should do next. But then the general and the scholar returned, battered and bruised. They said to me, "We need to talk tonight." I quickly nodded, not daring to ask why it had to be at night. When night fell, I finally understood why. Because the crown prince had jumped in through the window again, and he was also bruised and battered. We sat facing each other across the low table. The crown prince sneered. "Ask them how she humiliated me back then." As he spoke, he seemed to wince slightly as if from a toothache, hissing through his teeth. "Tanhua defended me. Even if Yang Yang was at fault, you didn't come out worse for it," the general said. "She's young and doesn't know any better. Why must you take it so seriously?" The scholar retorted, "Even if Yang Yang was at fault, this kind of thing, you've already gotten your revenge. Look at the marks you left on her wrists," the general replied. "Then we're even. Don't come looking for her again." The crown prince snorted coldly. "I'm afraid she'll grow too lonely and come find me herself." I quickly said, "I'm not. I didn't. My husband has already returned, and two came back at once. How could I possibly have the energy to look for you?" The Tanhua hurriedly said. "Let me see," the general said. "We believe in your highness the crown prince's noble status, and such matters are not fit for outsiders to discuss. To make amends to Yang Yang, the Tanhua and I are willing to serve your highness from now on." The crown prince was silent for a long moment before asking me, "What do you think?" I'm almost in tears. "Your highness, I was blind not to recognize Mount Tai before. Please be magnanimous and let me go like passing wind." He remained silent for a moment before asking, "What do you plan to do with those two?" The general replied, "Your highness, this is our family matter. There's no need for you to trouble yourself with it." The crown prince twirled his jade thumb ring. "I'm not leaving, and that's final." The general seethed with anger but dared not speak. The Tanhua, third-place scholar, soothed, "It's all right, let him listen if he wants. Yang Yang, what are your thoughts?" I looked at him guiltily. Then after a moment's consideration said, "I'd like to speak with you alone." We both went to the bamboo grove outside. After hesitating for a long time, I said, "Husband, we eat and live in the general's residence. Leaving here wouldn't be good for the two children. We must consider them. I'll continue being the general's wife from now on, but you have a place in my heart." The Tanhua nodded and said, "I was thinking the same. I know you love me most, but you chose him for various considerations." I understand. How touching. I was just about to say, "Let him marry the girl he likes and live in the general's mansion, it'll be lively. Then the four of us can play cards together." But then I heard him say, "For you, I'm willing to be the one who stays in the shadows." If he can't even do that, how can he claim to love you? He wore a smug look on his face. Me, I hesitated. "I'm a traditional woman," he said. "All right, it's settled then." Me. As we returned, Tanhua declared, "I voluntarily withdraw, not because I don't love her, but because I love her too much to put her in a difficult position." The general scoffed. "She would have chosen me without your concession." Tanhua, "What I want is pure love, not calculated trade-offs." The general continued to sneer. "What I want is something tangible in my grasp." I breathed a sigh of relief. It seems everyone has reached a consensus. So the three of us turned our gazes toward the crown prince. His expression darkened, puzzled by the situation. "What are you doing?" the general said. "Your highness, my wife and I need to rest." The crown prince angrily stormed off in a huff. The Tanhua scholar and the general immediately looked smug. But then, the general turned his gaze to Tanhua. Tanhua also flicked his sleeve and left. That night, amidst the flickering candlelight, I nestled in the general's arms. "I'm sorry, I thought you were." "So I remarried." He held me tightly. "It's all right, I understand you. And I'm grateful you insisted on giving birth to Golden Egg and stayed to take care of my parents. Otherwise, I can't imagine how they would survive without you and Golden Egg." I remember the sorrowful atmosphere at home when we received news of his death. Back then, he had just returned from the border for the new year before rushing off again in a hurry. We were all waiting for him to come back. The news confirmed he had died in battle. His parents aged more than 10 years overnight. The general had been their only child. For a time, his mother couldn't bring herself to eat anything, sitting there often, shedding tears. Father-in-law, usually such a strong and cheerful man, didn't step out of the courtyard where the general lived as a child for 3 whole months. That courtyard held the swords, spears, and staffs he played with from childhood, along with the books he'd read and the characters he'd written, almost like traces of his entire upbringing. It wasn't until I was nearly 4 months pregnant that I noticed my belly had grown. My period didn't come, and I thought it was due to overwhelming grief. Then that day I went to see my mother-in-law. I hadn't slept well in a long time, and couldn't bring myself to eat either. The general and I had been childhood sweethearts, deeply devoted. How could I not be heartbroken? The day I fainted, the doctor finally diagnosed that I was pregnant. The golden egg became the hope for all of us. When my father-in-law heard the news of my pregnancy back then, he finally came out from the courtyard, and we were all startled to see him, because his hair had turned completely white. Later, we welcomed the golden egg together. The bitterness on my in-laws' faces lessened somewhat. I held him tightly. "You've suffered so much too, my love. Let's both be well from now on. We'll raise this child well together." He hummed in agreement, stroking my belly, and said, "From now on, this child will be mine." He continued, "Before, when you were pregnant, I couldn't take care of you. Now I will take good care of you." I responded with a blissful The general's duty was to train troops. He left every morning and returned each evening. The Tanhua scholar lived alone in one courtyard. I lived in another courtyard with the 2 children and the general. The children often went to play at their grandparents' place, and also visited the Tanhua scholar. They were very happy. One afternoon, I was taking a nap. I felt someone stroking my belly. I murmured, "Yuzhang, stop fooling around. Aqo will be back soon." The Tanhua was named Song Yuzhang, and the general was called Xiao Quo. "You truly are an unfaithful woman." I defended myself. I was drugged that day. My mind wasn't clear. "And what about after? Was that not you after that?" I nodded. "It wasn't me. I was possessed. I firmly resist male charms. Male beauty is dangerous for pregnant women." The Tanhua, 3rd place scholar, also frequently climbs through the window to visit me. We were incredibly sweet together. I said, "I'm sorry for putting you through this." He replied, "It's nothing. I'm willing to do all of this." Then we talked about the latest happenings with our 2 children. He shared interesting things he'd encountered, and I told him everything I wanted to say. The Tanhua also touched my belly. "I really hope it's a daughter. We already have 2 sons, just missing a girl now." He also said, "This child is mine." He's quite possessive too. The general was even more vocal, telling everyone he met that he was going to be a father again. Only the in-laws were deeply worried, feeling that since this was the crown prince's bloodline, raising the child in the general's residence wasn't quite proper. The general, "This is my child, my wife is mine, so naturally the child is mine too." The scholar, "Yours, this is mine." The general sneered, "You're mine to begin with. What's this talk of yours and mine?" Tanhua, in-laws, "After 10 months of pregnancy, I gave birth to another son. His name is Shuaidan, water egg." The crown prince still often climbed through the window to visit him. The general and the top scholar frequently claimed they were his fathers. So the 1 or 2-year-old Shudan came to believe that all handsome young men were his fathers. It nearly drove me mad. After giving birth to Shuaidan, I resumed my shameless life once more. The crown prince's so-called solution was to arrange a fake identity for me, then marry me while I wore a bridal veil. After the wedding, he announced that the crown princess was in frail health and had gone to a temple to recuperate. As for many years later, when Shuaidan was named crown prince, he simply claimed the crown princess had given birth while away, and we had found and raised the child ourselves. He even established an ascetic, devoted lover persona, leading everyone to believe he was so diligent in governance and caring for his people that he had transcended even the most worldly desires. Who could have guessed he was actually a 7 times a night man, with each time being different? The general is formidable, the scholar is gentle. With a subtle charm that blends seamlessly with green tea, the crown prince is a sinister ghost of a man, lurking in the shadows, luring souls, comparable to a male demon that drains one's essence. Each has their own merits. As the saying goes, Fahua Temple is truly miraculous. I must go donate some silver. The water egg was also conceived at Fahua Temple. This blessed land saved a desperately thirsty widow. Extra chapter. The crown prince, the abstinent and upright crown prince, had originally intended to preserve his primordial yang to cultivate his virginity arts. He went to investigate the case of the Fahua Temple treasure. The abbot had secretly hoarded the Fahua Temple treasure.
which could rival half the national treasury, as a result. He took a palm strike and nearly died on the spot. Then a woman forced him 7 times in one night. His vow of celibacy was hopelessly broken. Though he was a man, the more he thought about it, the angrier he became, and the more humiliated he felt. That wanton woman actually imprisoned him. At first, he refused, but resistance was futile. Eventually, he closed his eyes, let her do as she pleases. Later, he enjoyed it. She was like a gorgeous, wanton female ghost, enticing his very soul. This must be what they call souls entwined through passion. She truly was an enchantress. During their passionate union atop Mount Wu, she stole away his very soul. He became addicted to their amorous affairs. He viciously thought about capturing her and bringing her back to the Eastern Palace, locking her up too, to make her his tool for venting desires. But he merely thought about it. He went to the general's residence, not even knowing what he intended to do, but he knew he must make her see that he was truly the crown prince. He could have her executed, watching the 3 of them arrange their seats, while he remained merely an outsider to be dismissed. Why did it feel so utterly wrong? Yet no one spoke up for him. They dared to look down on him. After returning, the more he thought about it, the angrier he became. Although he was indeed fighting with his other brothers, vying for the support of the court officials, but he just had to stick his nose in. That wretched woman kept seducing him in his dreams every night. They wanted to kick him out, not a chance. Though he lacked the status of a legitimate spouse, it was still better than living under someone else's roof like a third-place scholar, enduring disdain and being treated like a concubine. He was, after all, the secret lover who shared a love nest with Yang Yang. But he knew he couldn't afford to be arrogant either. He had to outlast the other 2.